Good afternoon. It's Sunday, February 14th. I'm Ariel O'Sullivan, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. At this hour, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is testifying before the High Court of Justice in a further attempt to defend the controversial gas deal within the framework of 5 petitions that were filed against it. The Prime Minister's appearance is unprecedented and considered extremely rare. He requested to personally appear under his capacity as the Minister of the Economy. Petitioners opposed his testimony, charging that Netanyahu is attempting to intimidate and manipulate the decision. In a personal affidavit submitted to the court last week, Netanyahu stressed that failure to implement the outline would immensely impact Israel's security and economy and foreign relations. Netanyahu was instructed to file the personal testimony in order to justify his decision to bypass the antitrust authorities' objections to the deal. The hearing began a short time ago with Netanyahu's statements. Only the judges and not any of the petitioners will be permitted to ask the Prime Minister questions. The High Court of Justice is expected to issue its ruling either later today or tomorrow. Final preparations are well underway at the Misayahu prison for tomorrow's unprecedented incarceration of former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert. Olmert will be serving his 19-month jail sentence at a special white-collar facility that was remodeled to accommodate him per instructions from the Shin Bet Security Service. The former Prime Minister will not have a private cell and will be compelled to share with 2 other inmates, most likely 2 who were also convicted in the Holy Land affair. Each cell has a television set, and the block has a clubhouse, a canteen, and a specially designed in-house educational library. The prisoners may also subscribe to newspapers and are permitted to wear regular civilian clothing. However, every time Olmert will go outside for a hearing or during visits, he will be forced to wear the mandatory orange jail uniform. Earlier today, I spoke with Orit Adato, the former prison service commissioner, about the process that Olmert would have to go through once he enters the prison gates and the conditions he would be subjected to during his jail term.
The process will be similar to a process of any other convict that comes to prison, with some differences because of his security position and the reason of the national security as well, because as a former prime minister, he has a lot of knowledge and he has to be secured in a different way from any other person. That's why even his entrance to the prison will be a bit different, because usually you see an inmate or someone who is convicted and on his way to prison coming by himself, getting in through the main door of the prison, and that's the way it usually happens. In that particular occasion, it will be a bit different because he is escorted by the security organization until the entrance to the prison, and it will be a little different. And from that moment on, he will be secured by the Israeli Prison Service and not the National Security Organization anymore.
What will his day look like?
Well, it's a routine, like in every other hall, getting up in the morning, a kind of 3-4 times of counting the inmates when you have to stand beside your bed and to answer to your name. This is happening everywhere. It will happen at that hall as well. During the day, they are able to either work or study something, or write or work in something. They are being doing something. It's not just sitting, by yourself the whole day. Usually in such a kind of a hall, the cells are open during the day within the hall, while, of course, the door of the hall is always closed. So, as I said, education, some kind of maybe vocational training. For others, I'm not sure that he will be relevant for that. He can write, he can read, he can watch TV. They can read, write, watch TV, or listen to the radio, or read the newspapers. Of course, 3 meals a day. The option to buy once a week some things from the prison canteen. And at night, of course, counting again and getting to sleep like everyone else.
At this hour, retired Major General Avigdor Janusz Ben-Gal, a legendary war hero and one of the country's most respected generals, is being laid to rest at the Kiryat Shmuel Military Cemetery. Ben-Gal passed away Saturday night at the age of 79. He joined the Army in 1956 and quickly climbed through the ranks of the Armored Corps. He served as the operations officer of the 7th Brigade during the 6 Days War and commanded a battalion near the Suez Canal during the War of Attrition. When the Yom Kippur War broke out in 1973, he commanded the 7th Brigade on the Golan Heights, his forces holding back 3 Syrian armored divisions, preventing them from crossing into Israel until reinforcements arrived. Between the years 1977 and 1981, Ben-Gal headed the Army's Northern Command and retired after losing his quest to become Chief of Staff. In civilian life, he was chairman of the Israel Aerospace Industries and also served on the board of the International Policy Institute for Counterterrorism. Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon said Ben-Gal was one of the few who, by their virtue of actions, shaped the IDF, adding he was always on the spot when critical decisions were being made, often under fire. President Reuven Rivlin described Ben-Gal as a national hero, saying the country owes him an indelible debt. Ben-Gal is survived by his wife and 7 children. Nadav Argaman has been appointed by the Prime Minister Netanyahu to serve as the next head of the Shin Bet Security Services. The 55-year-old current deputy head of the Shin Bet will succeed Yoram Cohen in May, becoming its 13th chief. Argaman, a resident of the central city of Rosh Ha'ayin, joined the agency in 1983 after serving as an officer in the IDF General Staff Reconnaissance Unit. He rose through the agency's ranks and served as head of the Shin Bet operations between 2003 and 2007. After that, he spent 4 years as a Shin Bet's representative in the United States before being appointed deputy head of the organization. In 2014, he served at the Israel Atomic Energy Commission and just recently returned to the Shin Bet when he replaced Ronnie El-Sheikh, who was named the new chief of police. Outgoing Shin Bet head Yoram Cohen praised the decision, saying Argaman's personal and professional abilities will enable him to lead the organization in the face of present and future challenges. The upsurge in Palestinian violence is showing no signs of abating, with a series of stabbings and attempted attacks. This afternoon, a Palestinian terrorist tried to stab a soldier manning a checkpoint near Jerusalem's Har Homa neighborhood. He was shot by the security forces. Earlier, soldiers shot and killed 2 Palestinian teens who opened fire at security forces near Hananit in Samaria. Last night, 3 border policemen were lightly injured while attempting to stop a car outside a military post near Ma'ale Adumim. Initial reports suggested the driver had intended to ram his vehicle into the group, but police later said it appeared that the driver attempted to evade arrest because he was transporting Palestinians illegally. The incident occurred after 2 Palestinians were spotted jumping over the security fence and entering an Israeli vehicle heading towards Jerusalem. Border policemen headed towards the car to inspect its occupants when the driver apparently panicked and reversed, hitting them and attempted to speed away. A border police car then blocked its path and the 3 occupants were arrested. Yesterday afternoon, a 17-year-old Palestinian teenager was shot and killed by soldiers after she attempted to stab a soldier with a knife near the Cave of the Patriarchs. The soldier was uninjured, but a Palestinian man who tried to prevent the teenager from attacking the soldier was accidentally stabbed. Amid frenzied efforts by world powers to secure a ceasefire in Syria, Saudi fighter jets are heading to Turkey, and a Turkish-Saudi ground offensive in Syria looks like a real possibility. IBA's Margot Dutkevich reports.
Turkey shelled Kurdish positions in northern Syria for a second day today, as Turkish Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoglu hinted Ankara is considering a ground assault in Syria. He confirmed his country had struck Kurdish targets also yesterday, after Kurdish fighters captured areas near Aleppo. Over the weekend, Turkey's foreign minister was quoted saying his country and Saudi Arabia are considering putting boots on the ground in Syria. The latest comments from Turkish officials occurred less than 48 hours after the United States and Russia agreed to a cessation of hostilities on the ground in Syria in order to facilitate the entry of humanitarian aid to Syrian civilians. At the Munich Security Conference, world powers convened to discuss the crisis in Syria, which has claimed close to 500,000 lives. US Secretary of State John Kerry accused Russia yesterday of hitting legitimate opposition groups and civilians in the war-torn country, and demanded Moscow change its tactics and respect the ceasefire deal.
To date, the vast majority, in our opinion, of Russia's attacks have been against legitimate opposition groups. And to adhere to the agreement that has been made, we think it is critical that Russia's targeting change. And the entire ISSG, including Russia, has agreed to work to make that happen. Now, let me be very clear about this. Foreign Minister Lavrov has said that we need to work together as a group to determine who should be attacked, who is qualified as a terrorist, who isn't. And I will say bluntly that there is no way to properly put a humanitarian access as ambitious as the one we've embraced in place, and there is no way to adequately deal with a cessation of hostilities unless we do sit down and work together on every aspect of this, from the political to the humanitarian to the military also.
Russia expressed doubts on a possible ceasefire, saying the plan is more likely to fail than succeed. Russia's Prime Minister noted cooperation between Moscow and Washington is vital. However, on the ground, Russian airstrikes backed by Syrian regime forces continued to pound Aleppo. While ceasefire talks by Western powers continued, footage emerged over the weekend of Syrian rebels targeting Assad's forces north of Aleppo. There was also footage of Russian aerial bombings backed by Syrian regime forces on Damascus, Homs and Aleppo, leaving civilians to make their way out of damaged buildings and piles of rubble. The coming days will tell whether world powers will succeed in bringing an end to the conflict that has claimed the lives of hundreds of thousands of Syrians and made 11 million people homeless, and is sending hundreds of thousands of Syrian refugees fleeing to Europe. Margot Dudkevich, IBA News.
Prime Minister Netanyahu has denied that he has agreed to a European Union initiative recommending steps to reach a two-state solution. This is in response to an announcement made on the official blog of the European Union Foreign Policy Chief, Federica Mogherini, following a conversation between the two Friday. Mogherini said work on the new proposal based on the Arab Peace Initiative had already begun and was being conducted in close coordination with Netanyahu, who she says agreed to the move. However, last night, Netanyahu's office said he had never agreed to such an initiative, saying the two never discussed the issue. Netanyahu went on to say that Israel's relations with the EU are close and friendly. The Foreign Ministry said Israel and the EU had mended their ties and overcome their crisis caused by the European decision to label Israeli goods produced in Judea and Samaria and the Golan Heights.
The quartet underscored that both sides must swiftly demonstrate, through policies and actions, a genuine commitment to a two-state solution in order to rebuild trust and avoid a cycle of escalation. It emphasized that a robust Palestinian economy and enhanced governance capacity will serve as a cornerstone of a Palestinian state, and that genuine Palestinian unity on the basis of democracy and the PLO principles is essential to uniting Gaza and the West Bank under one legitimate, democratic Palestinian Authority.
Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon met with Jordan's King Abdallah last week on the sidelines of a security conference in Munich in what defense officials describe as a very important meeting. Ya'alon's office released a statement saying the two discussed regional issues and developments, including the bilateral ties between Israel and Jordan, the situation in Syria, and steps to advance the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. Speaking at the conference, the Jordanian monarch said one cannot talk about justice in the world without solving the Palestinian question and striving for a state for them. The king warned that failure to resolve this threatens to plunge the entire region into a religious conflict, which will be exploited by the Islamic State. Hebrew University scientists say that they have detected for the first time gravitational waves coming from two black holes that were also foreseen by physicist Albert Einstein a century ago. Documents relating to the landmark discovery that supports their theory were revealed by scientists at a press conference last week. The gravitational waves are said to be an open the door for a new way to observe the universe and gain knowledge about enigmatic objects like black holes and neutron stars. In 1916, Einstein proposed the existence of gravitational waves, but until now, scientists have only found indirect evidence of their existence.
It's a very exciting day for me and for many of the people involved in this quest. This is an ending or partial closing for a journey that started over 100 years ago. And an event like this doesn't happen every day in our lives as scientists. This is a project where thousands of human years were invested in, and now finally this goal presumably was reached and will take us now to a new era.
Well, even if you didn't quite follow that item, it's enough to know that Israeli scientists were involved in this groundbreaking discovery. And staying with that theme, and as we kick off a new week, here's a list of 5 good news stories that may make your lives just a little bit easier, or at least make you feel a little proud. On its way to becoming official, a cabinet legislation committee has approved an 8-day paid paternity leave for fathers of newborn babies. This in addition to the mother's leave. The bill is on its way for final approval. Although not ideal, 5 of the 8 days will be taken from sick days and 3 days from vacation time. Over $200 million will be invested in Israeli innovation. A joint Israeli-Chinese equity fund, Catalyst, hopes to establish Israel, among others, as a world leader in the fields of manufacturing, agriculture, healthcare, water, energy, and technology, incorporating its mature companies as key players in the Chinese market. A prize-winning Israeli sealant prevents damaged lungs from collapsing. Vigor Medical Technologies will receive $1 million from crowdfunding for its system that can seal external and internal wounds in the chest without bandages or tape. If treated within 1 hour, the patient has an 80% chance of survival. Israel's Aleppo Codex, believed to be the world's oldest copy of the Hebrew Bible, has been recognized by UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, as a unique world treasure. And finally, homegrown French-Israeli singer Yael Naim took home the title of Best Female Artist at the prestigious French Music Awards ceremony this weekend, which is equivalent to the renowned Grammys. This is Naim's second win, declaring her France's favorite singer of the year. Taking a look at local finance, and with no currency trading on Sundays, the shekel remains the same, while share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange started off the week in the plus column. Here's a look at the late afternoon numbers. Turning to the weather, and the gorgeous skies and warm temperatures over the weekend drew over 100,000 Israelis out to the parks and nature reserves across the country. Many enjoyed the blooming kalaniyot and others wildflowers. Despite the pleasant weather, it was a bit more chilly on the Golan Heights. Over 10,000 people made their way to the Hermon to enjoy the ski slopes, white snow and blue skies. Now the IBA weather team is forecasting even warmer temperatures tomorrow. Here's a look at the expected highs and lows at home and abroad for the next 24 hours. That's our broadcast of IBA News for today. Please join us again tomorrow when Laura Cornfield will be here to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. I'm Ariel Sullivan, wishing you a good evening and shalom from Jerusalem.